Section 1.2 is order of operations and evaluating expressions. I can simplify expressions involving exponents, and I can use the order of operations to evaluate expressions. Big ideas here. Powers can be used to shorten how we represent repeated multiplication. So instead of taking 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, we can write that as a power. So we take our base, which is 2, figure out how many times it's being multiplied times itself. Here's 6, and that becomes our exponent. When simplifying an expression, operations must be performed in the correct order. And we're going to use Pemdas to remember that. Pemdas. So a power has two parts, a base and an exponent. Here our base is 2, our exponent is 6. An exponent tells us how many times to use the base as a factor. So we read this power as 2 to the third power, or we can say 2 cubed. And this as 5 to the second power, or 5 squared. Cubed and squared are the only ones where we have special names for. Other than that, it's just 7 to the 6th power, or 8 to the 4th power. We simplify a numerical expression when we replace it with its single numerical value. For example, the simplest form of 2 times 8 is 16, so we replace 2 times 8 with 16. To simplify a power, we replace it with its simplest name. So to simplify 2 to the third power here, we take our base times itself, exponent number of times. And then we actually multiply it out. 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8. In example 1, we're simplifying powers. So the simplified form for each expression is what we're looking for here. Our first step is going to be to write it out as repeated multiplication. So we take our base 10 times itself, exponent number of times. And I want you to do that every time just until we get more comfortable here and to get some practice. So 10 to the 7th power is actually 10 times itself 7 times, which is going to give me 7 zeros. Or 10 million. Same idea here with b. I take my base times itself, exponent numbers of times. Now I'm going to take just the number parts here first. So 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. I'm not going to worry about my decimals yet. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32. And now I'm going to count up my decimals. Here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Since I have 5 numbers behind my decimal place, I need 5 numbers behind my decimal place in my final answer. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my answer is 0.00032. Now feel free to pause here and give these a try. 3 to the 4th power, we're going to take our base 3 times itself, exponent numbers of times. And here we can either go straight across like we did with our 2's, or we can group these a little bit and make it a little easier. 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 9 is going to give me 81. Same idea here in B. We take our base times itself, exponent number of times. Here my base though is that entire 2/3. I take it times itself, exponent number of times. And my exponent is 3. When we multiply fractions, we multiply straight across. So it's like we make one big fraction, multiply our numerators together, multiply our denominators together. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. And in C, we take our base, 0.5, times itself, exponent number of times. 5 times 5 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25 times 5. If we have 5 quarters, we have $1.25, so 125 cents. Check your decimal places. Here I have 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 in my answer. So I get 0.125. And again, we're counting decimal places after our decimal. 1, 2, 3. My final answer has to have 3 then as well. When simplifying an expression, we need to perform operations in the correct order. So we're always going to use the following order of operations. First thing we're going to do is perform any operations inside grouping symbols. Those can be parentheses, brackets, fraction bars, anything like that, and those go under P, which is for parentheses, but remember it includes any grouping symbols. Then we're going to simplify our powers, which is our E here for exponents. Okay, so simplifying powers means we're going to get rid of any exponents. Step 3 is multiply and divide. We're going to do these at the same time from left to right. So this is the same step. If we see division before multiplication, that's okay. We do that first. Okay, we multiply and divide same time, starting from the left, working right. Just like how we read a sentence. In English, we read a sentence in math. And our last step here is to do any adding or subtracting. And the same thing with these guys, it's going to be from left to right, whatever we see first. At the same time, same step. So if we look here in example 2, to simplify this numerical expression, we're going to use Pemdas to help us remember. And it's helpful, guys, while we're getting used to this, to write these out and then cross things out as we go. So P stands for parentheses. Check and see if we have any. We do. So I'm going to do my parentheses first. 6 minus 2 gives me 4. Parentheses are done. And I'm going to bring down the rest of my problem exactly as it's written. Now we do any exponents if we have any. I do. 4 cubed, so 4 times 4 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16, times 4 gives me 64. Exponents are done. And we bring down the rest of our problem exactly as it's written. All I have left is one thing here, division, so I can go ahead and divide 32. And that's part of my multiply and divide step. So 32 is what we get when we simplify there. Same idea here on B. Feel free to write Pemdas down and cross them off as we go. At first look here, guys, we don't have any parentheses, but remember our grouping symbols include fraction bars, which means we have to do our entire numerator before we can divide. So in my numerator, to simplify those parentheses, I have an exponent, which is 2 times itself, exponent number of times, 2, 4, 8, 16. So I'm going to replace that with the 16. I'm going to bring the rest of the problem over exactly as it's written. And remember, this fraction bar is still like parentheses, so we have to do that subtraction before we can divide, which I know goes against our Pemdas, but remember that fraction bar is like a parentheses, and we have to do what's in our parentheses first. So when we subtract, 16 minus 1 is 15. And now we've gotten rid of those parentheses, it's completely simplified. And all we have left is this fraction bar, which remember we use as division. So 15 divided by 5 is 3. And we talked about that in section 1. We want a simplified form of each expression here. Feel free to pause and give these a try if you'd like. We're going to start off with Pemdas. So first thing we're going to do is any parentheses if we have them. There aren't any. Then exponents. 4 times 4 gives me 16. We bring down the rest of the problem exactly as it's written. And exponents are done. We're going to multiply and divide at the same time from left to right. So we're going to get rid of our multiplication and our division in the same step. 5 times 7 is 35, and 16 divided by 2 gives me 8. Now we bring down the rest of the problem just like it's written, and we do any adding or subtracting, which here gives me 27. Again, feel free to stop this and give it a try if you'd like. No parentheses, no exponents. Multiplication and division we have though. So we're going to divide first and get 5. Bring down the rest of our problem. All I have left is subtraction, and I get 7. Okay. Here, P for parentheses or any grouping symbols, remember that fraction bar counts. So it's like these are both in parentheses, and we need to simplify those first. We had to simplify our numerator completely and simplify our denominator completely. In my numerator, okay, I have exponents, so I'm going to do that part first. And we did this one already. 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 times 3 is 9. When we multiply them together, we get 81. And I'm going to bring over the rest of my problem. And in my denominator, this set of parentheses, I didn't have any exponents. Now we check for multiplication and division. I don't have any, so just adding or subtracting. When I go ahead and add these, I get 85. In my denominator, I get just 5. Now, all I have left is one thing in my numerator, one thing in my denominator. It's like that parentheses is gone now. Exponents are gone. All we're going to do is divide what we have left and get to 17. So we have to completely simplify our numerator, completely simplify our denominator, and then we can divide. We evaluate an algebraic expression by replacing each variable with a given number. Then we simplify the numerical expression using the order of operations. So our goal here is to get rid of variables and plug in the numbers that we know. We know that x is going to be 5, so everywhere I see an x, I'm going to plug in a 5. And we know that y is going to be 2, so everywhere I see a y, I'm going to plug in a 2. And the rest of my problem is going to stay exactly the same. So again, x is 5, y is 2, and the rest of the problem comes down just like it's written. I just substituted in what we knew those values to be. Now I'm going to simplify this using Pemdas. I have no parentheses, but I do have exponents, 2 sets. 5 times 5 gives me 25, and 2 times 2 gives me 4. Bring down the rest of our problem. Multiplication and division. I have some division right here. When I divide there, I get 3. We bring down the rest of our problem. And now I have adding and subtracting. We do at the same time from left to right. So we start at the left, 25 plus 5 is 30, minus 3, 27. Again, x is 5. And y is 2. I substitute in those values that I know, and I'm using the same ones from over here. And remember guys, when there isn't a sign in between, it means multiplication. So we're going to multiply those when we bring down the rest of our problem. And again, all I did was bring down everything there that's left. P for parentheses, so 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 2 is 10. We're going to bring down the rest of our problem. Exponents are next. 10 times 10 gives me 100. Bring down the rest of our problem. Finally, we can divide because it's our only thing left, and we get 10. Now, feel free to pause here and give these a try if you'd like. Here, A is 3, and B is 4. I'm going to bring down the rest of my problem. Again, remember it's multiplication there. No parentheses. Exponents mean I'm going to do my exponent first. 3 times 3 is 9. And bring down the rest of my problem. Maybe. Then we're going to multiply and divide. Bring down the rest of our problem. And this simplifies to 3 with these specific variables. Now, A is 3, B is 4. Bring down the rest of our problem. No parentheses, so exponents first. Bring down the rest of our problem. Multiply and divide. I have 2 instances of multiplication. I get 32 and 21. Bring down our problem. And now all we have left is subtraction, which gives me 11. And I'll continue on in another video.